I want to move now to the Saturday after she is arrested, because I think I'm troubled by something that happens that I think implicates the court system itself. Okay, now, you and I both work in Los Angeles, and you had mentioned this earlier, that if you're arrested on a Friday, you're brought to court on a Monday or Tuesday, and often, and this is true, whether people agree with us or not, officers use that to their advantage.
Absolutely.
If someone's being a real quote-unquote asshole, they are going to be brought to jail in such a manner that they will spend several days before they even get to see a judge. That clearly is not the case in this part of Texas, because in fact, Sandra Bland is brought to a court on Saturday, and the court sets bail at $5,000. Now, I find this infuriating. We have a 28-year-old woman, a college graduate, someone looking for work, and it doesn't appear she has any significant criminal history whatsoever. She's in custody on a very minor misdemeanor offense. Why are they setting bail at $5,000? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, certainly they could have given her an OR,
Absolutely.
which is a release on her own recognizance
Exactly.
with her ID.
And just to explain for the audience, when someone is released on their own recognizance, that means that they pay nothing. They're released immediately from the jail or the courthouse, and they sign something similar to a citation promising to appear in court on another day. If, on the other hand, a judge sets bail, and he can only do this for two reasons: one, a person being a flight risk, and two, a danger to the community, it does not appear to me, other than the fact that she's of another state, that Sandra Bland created either of these risks. Okay, but if the judge does set bail, then a person has to come up with the money to post the bail. And if you're a person who does not have the means to afford $5,000, you are stuck in bail until Monday. Clearly, Sandra Bland was stuck in jail until Monday, and then we see what happens to her. I'm very, very troubled by a judge keeping her in jail on this kind of a minimal offense.
And we understand that Waller has a history of racial discrimination and racial animus. And so
this is the judge who set the bail.
Right, and so I don't know that there's a big conspiracy, because I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. However, we do have a facility that's run by a gentleman who was fired from Hempstead for racial discrimination complaints, and now he heads up this organization. And so I just think, you know, the body does what the brain does, right? Yeah. And so if your head is corrupt, the whole system is corrupt.
You know, but look, I could even speak to what's happening here in Los Angeles, in the state of California, and that is that there was a time when on misdemeanors, when on lower level offenses, people were automatically granted release on their own recognizance unless there was a significant reason not to grant them that release. The opposite happens now. The assumption is to set bail, even on minimal offenses. And that's what's troubling to me. You have to realize that every person who's brought to jail is innocent until proven guilty. They've been convicted of no crime. And to keep them in jail over weekends, for days on minimal offenses, is a form of punishment. Isn't that right?
And absolutely. And see, that's my bone of contention about this entire incident, is that I think everything along the way was punishment.
Yes, I agree.
It was punishment from the very beginning.
We have to now move on to that Monday morning. Now, we know that an hour and a half of videotape is missing, but we do know that allegedly Sandra Bland is found Monday morning, I believe, at approximately 9:30 a.m., and she has hung herself with a plastic trash bag. Now, you've said earlier in the show you're not buying it. Why?
Well, first of all, understand this. Police officers have a symbiotic relationship with jail officers, because we come to that jail 2 or 3 times a week, maybe more, depending on your level of activity, with the arrestees. And so we get to know the jailers. We get to be friendly with them. And so if I bring someone in who's combative, who's been giving me a hard time, and I pass them on to the jailers with a wink and a nod, right, then that jailer becomes an extension of me, I believe. And I think that those jailers just finished what Officer Encenia started in the field.
Let's be very clear about this. If Sandra Bland did not commit suicide, this is absolutely a homicide. And if this is a homicide, which simply means the killing of one person by another, in your mind, if this is a homicide, the people who killed Sandra Bland were actual employees of the police department?
would have to be. And we just heard recently today, I heard on another report that there was marijuana found in her system. She's been in there for 3 days. A medical doctor reports marijuana would not show up in a toxicology report beyond 1 day. So how does she have marijuana in her system 3 days later? And based on her demeanor and her level of displeasure being voiced in the scene, at the scene, I'm certain when she got to jail, she didn't get quiet, right? And I'm certain that she was continuing to let them know how unhappy she was with the service that they were providing.
And the disappearing hour and a half of videotape is very, very suspicious.
And how do you get a plastic bag and tie 2 knots to support the weight of a 6-foot-tall woman sufficiently so that her body weight doesn't bring it to the ground before she cinched it up? I mean, unless she was a Boy Scout and got a badge and square knots, I don't know how you do that.